What's going on, fellow crypto creeps? Z Brazil here, back again with another video. Today I wanted to introduce you to chart analysis and go over 3 simple tools that'll help you in your crypto journey. Alright, now this video will be helpful to those of you who aren't really familiar with chart analysis, who are just getting into it and need a little bit of direction. For those of you that are seasoned traders, who knows, stick around, you might glean something from it. Otherwise, keep in mind that I want to keep this as basic and simplified as possible. So within crypto, you're operating with a limited set of parameters. Crypto isn't like stocks in the sense that it's not affected by the same factors that stocks are. For instance, the price of the stock might be affected by revenue projections, earnings reports, management changes, etc. Now, there are certain parallels in crypto, such as the effect of forks or rumors of legislation, etc. But what we've seen is that you can effectively trade crypto, or at least read the trends, using chart analysis. And there aren't as many market forces affecting crypto as there would be in stocks. So let's get right into it. The first thing I want you to do is go to tradingview.com, and I had the page open, so let me just go to the home page. And tradingview.com is simply the best free charting analysis tool that you can use right now. I actually can't believe that it's free, to be honest. You don't need to sign up for an account, I don't believe, but it helps if you want to be engaged in the discussions. There's a lot of great information. There's a lot of smart people that are on here. And what you want to do is go to markets, cryptocurrencies, and you'll see that there's a list of other financial instruments on here, but today we'll just focus on crypto. And for simplicity's sake, go to Bitcoin. Now here you'll see a list of Bitcoin pegged against different fiat currencies. You'll see the dollar, the yen, as well as pegged against other cryptocurrencies. So here's Bitcoin priced against Tether, here's Bitcoin priced against Ripple, etc. Now that helps if you're holding those cryptocurrencies. So if you do have Ripple, if you do have Tether, if you do have Ethereum, then you can look at the price of Bitcoin relative to the currency that you do hold, in case you want to purchase it with said currency. So let's click on Bitcoin USD for simplicity's sake. And here you'll see a basic chart. That's not what we want. We want the interactive chart. So click on interactive chart, X out of this ad that reminds you that you are using a free product. And here's the live view of Bitcoin against the US dollar. You'll see it's hovering around 14,000 right now. And if we look up here, you'll see that this is in increments of 1 day. So this is a more longer term snapshot. Obviously you'll see that this goes all the way back to August, and you could even go further back. And you'll see the general trend that Bitcoin has been running through over the last year. It's no surprise that it's a continuous uptrend until you get to the recent point. Now, I'm going to assume that you know the general gist of how to read candlesticks. If you don't, each of these candlesticks represents the increment that you see up here. And the green means on that day that Bitcoin closed higher than it opened. And the red means that it closed lower than it opened. And if you see these wicks right here, this is basically how low or how high the price went during that day. So how do we glean a little bit more information from this? Basically, you have the price, you have the date, and you have the open and close. That's all. But that doesn't really tell you much. I mean, you can draw trend lines here, but if you're trying to actively trade, this doesn't really tell you much. So the first thing we want to do is go over here and switch the increments to something a little shorter. Depends on how I'm trading that day. If I'm really actively day trading and I'm sitting in front of my computer all day and I have a lot of time and I'm just looking to make short-term profits, I will take a look at the 1 minute increments, which is this. Because with the way that cryptos are trading today, you can actually make a lot of money in 1 day since the swings are so large. And as you take a look at other cryptocurrencies, you'll see that the swings are even larger, or could be even larger than Bitcoin at the moment. So the 3 indicators that we spoke about earlier that we're going to look at today are RSI, volume, and moving averages. RSI stands for the Relative Strength Index, or in other words, a measure of the speed and changes in the movements of the price. The RSI moves between a range of 0 and 100, but the range that we're going to focus on is between 30 and 70, and you'll see why. So what I want you to do is go up here, go to indicators, go to oscillators, close this first one, which is the stochastic, close the CCI. Boom, you'll see it right here, RSI. So this is what we want to focus on. Here's the 70 that we talked about, here's the 30 that we talked about, and what you're trying to see is whether the currency is basically overbought or oversold. So the general rule is anytime that you see this go over 70, it's basically overbought. Anytime that this dips below 30, it's oversold. And between 70 and 30 is considered regular trading ranges. Now on its own, this tells you a little bit, but combined with the next two indicators, this is extremely valuable information to have. So the next indicator that we said we'll look at is volume. And once you open up the oscillator here, to get to the RSI, you might have noticed that this graph automatically popped up. And this is the volume right here. So the volume shows you how much of the underlying asset, in this case the cryptocurrency, was bought and sold within the increment. So you'll see here in this red bar, this means that this much volume was transacted during this increment, and there seems to be a massive sell-off here. And lo and behold, it correlates with this dip in the RSI. So you'll see that in this increment, it appears that Bitcoin was oversold, and you'll see that it jumped up a little and bounced back from there. So let's take a practical example. If there's a pretty long uptrend and you notice a sharp fall in prices one day, you could take a look at the volume and see if the tides are truly turning for the worse or if this just represents a short pullback. So go to the time interval, change this thing to something like an hour, and let's go ahead and look at the volume. So you'll see here that during the sell-offs, these red columns in the volume are actually peaking way higher than the greens. And this could be an indication that there's a bearish trend on the horizon. Even if you look at what's happening more recently, look how tall these red columns are. Now, if you're trying to make a determination based off these two indicators alone, you can see that the trend is moving towards lower highs and lower lows. And if you look at the RSI, it's hovering right around the middle, so it doesn't even indicate that Bitcoin is oversold right now at this price range. So right about now, it's probably a good time to introduce the third indicator, and that's the moving averages. There are different types of moving averages, and you'll see this referred to sometimes as MACD, EMA, or SMA. And I don't want to go into the mundane explanations of how these things are calculated, but I'd rather give you a simplified approach of how you can apply these practically. So go up here to indicators, go to the search box, type in moving, and you'll see here there are different moving averages. The one we're going to pick is moving average exponential. Click that twice because you want to create two of them. Come over here, go to the settings. Now again, I said there are different moving averages and there are different variations of them. You could do 1334, 520. Let's just stick to one for the purposes of the simple tutorial. Change this one to 5. Let's make it, I guess blue is fine. Let's make the line more bold. Go up to the other one. Hit the settings, input, change this one to 20. And let's obviously differentiate the color. Let's make it magenta and make the line more bold. And basically what you want to look at here, whether the shorter duration, so the 5, and this is based off of the intervals that you have selected up here, so the last 5 segments and the last 20 segments. So what you want to see is whether the 5 and the 20 cross, and where they cross can give you a little bit more information about where the trend is heading, along with the volume and the RSI that we discussed. So let's see if I can change this to something a little more meaningful. All right, so if we change it to something like 2 hours, and the reason I'm doing that is not for any particular reason other than that's a good interval right now that shows where the lines cross. So the 5 represents a smaller moving average, which is this blue line, and the magenta represents the longer moving average, the 20, which is this magenta line. If the blue line, which is the smaller average, goes above the larger average, then that indicates that there might be some sort of breakout. Obviously in conjunction, you want to look at the volume as well as the RSI. So right here, where the blue line intersected the magenta line, based on the RSI, Bitcoin is not overbought or oversold. And it doesn't look like any of these red candles back here represented huge sell-offs according to the volume. So once this crosses, that can essentially tell you that a mini breakout is occurring. Now, obviously nobody can predict the future exactly and tell you how long that breakout will last. And there are definitely other indicators that will help tell you where to buy and where to sell. But the general gist is when you see the shorter average cross the larger average and the asset doesn't appear to be overbought and there isn't significant volume being sold off, then you could expect a breakout and a trend towards the top. Again, this is interval based, so if you change this to a day, for instance, these lines look very different because each of these candles represents one day, and it's a much larger snapshot of what's going on. All right, so there you have it. I hope you learned something. I'm not giving you advice on where to put your money or how much money to put down. This was just a tutorial to help you read the charts and start to get comfortable with technical analysis. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments down below. And follow me on Instagram, where I post almost daily shots of my portfolio, market moves that I'm making, as well as just good old fucking around. All right, thanks for sticking around. Hope you learned something. Peace.